There we go. Oxford do score goals, 2 in one game. Just a shame that the other end couldn't keep them out. Welcome back to a Yellows Walk. Jude says, I felt like we played well against Coventry, especially in that second half. It was a much improvement from the past 6 games, and we actually seemed at times not to be allergic to playing attacking football. Lots of people saying Rowett out, but I disagree. And I say we need to back the boys. So we've got Sam and Connor back with us, and thank you very much for joining us. We're asking this week, are Oxford looking better in recent weeks? We're also talking about some players that are looking a bit greedy, not passing the ball, not looking up. We'll get Connor and Sam's view on that. Also, we're choosing our February Player of the Month, if we can find one, and we're manifesting the playoff final, given that we relegated some teams last week. Welcome back, Sam and Connor. Straight into it, if you don't mind then this week. Sam, was that a better performance?
It was in the second half. First half, it was another pretty lackluster performance from the boys. Jack Radoni's goal comes so easily, just no one picking him up in the area. But second half was better. The thing is that, and I do want to touch on kind of, there are some calls for a Rowett out, and let's put this in context, shall we? So we've lost 4 games under Gary Rowett. 3 of them have been to sides in or around the playoff and automatic spots. So let's have a bit of perspective here, guys. I understand the reason, because there's a lot of draws in that time under Garrett, and obviously the other loss was to Portsmouth in a game that, you know, we need to be getting points in those kind of games if we want to be remaining in the division. But a bit of perspective is needed on who those losses have been against.
Yeah, absolutely. And the referee, Connor, came in for a lot of criticism. This one came and says they weren't much better. They just took their chances when created as a good team does. Weak league or not, if that's not a benchmark for a good side in this league on a slight off day, then we aren't far away from being survival fit. I don't think. We've got to tidy up at the back, though. And there were lots of calls that, the fact that David Coote, I think, refereed the other one, was how could he even be the worst referee out of the 2? What was your thoughts on, first of all, were you unfairly done to in that game?
So I actually put up that I was wondering if it was just Trevor Kettle, a referee that we have history with, Trevor Kettle in disguise, because he seemed to do the same thing. He didn't really look like a match fit referee, and it was like observing from the center of the pitch. He wasn't really consistent, to be fair, in his decision making and what he was giving for both teams. He was pretty poor. It wasn't as if that he was horrifically one-sided, but the worst decisions that he made, unfortunately, were against Oxford, i.e. Brannigan's foul, or his foul, his dive. Kioso, it was stupid. I do think it was a foul, and that was a little bit, it was stupid that he did it in front of the ref, which just made it a whole lot easier. And if we're going to balance it out as well for our, belief for our second goal with Elliot Moore, there was a bit of, to be fair, good striker play by Harris, but if the ref had seen that, or if there was the dreaded VAR, probably would have been ruled out, because there was some tactical fouling going on there as well. But that doesn't mean to say that he was by far the worst referee I've seen in the EFL this season, and that is a very, very big hurdle to get over.
Yeah. It's more of a damning indictment on the state of refereeing, isn't it? In a league that he wasn't the worst. But if I can touch on those few instances kind of mentioned there, Mark. First of all, the one on Brannigan, and I know this is a very kind of unique situation to our ground, but the fact that, so he books Brannigan, and then literally 5 seconds later, a replay goes up on the screen, and that he's like, surely he could look up and go, actually, Brannigan's been fouled, that's got to go the other way. And then Connie, right on the Kiyosha one's really, really interesting, because it's a case of, like you say, it's a foul, it's stupid that he's done it, but it's one of those things that happens so often on corner kicks that if that's now a foul, then officials are going to be giving 4 or 5 penalties a game.
There were Coventry fans that I saw tweeting saying it wasn't good for them either. So good that you got the balance there. Lots of people are saying Coventry were diving, falling over at every opportunity. Did you agree with that, Connor?
I thought that when it came to it there, was it diving or was it good game management? I thought there was a fair bit. Some of their players I thought went down a little bit easily, and if not, were a bit soft. But then in other instances, if we're going to bounce it up again, there was players like Bidwell, built like a brick, Waterhouse, and he would stand up at every opportunity. And I'm sure we'll get onto it in a bit, but I found that battle between him and Placheta really entertaining and interesting all game.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We'll finish with we'll finish on the positives by talking about Romeny. Sam bagging his first goal. Yeah, and is he getting better and better each game?
There's just, I think I've said it a few times, Mark, there's just something about him that's so different to the other attacking options we've got. You know, again, it's such a simple thing, but I think it exemplifies the desire that he's got compared to the rest of our attackers in this instance. There's, I think, a counter-attacking move we had, and from just inside our half, the ball is literally right on the line. He managed to keep it in and just keep driving and driving, and I think creates ends up getting a corner kick for us. Like, he's got that drive, he's got that desire. He was, you know, contesting every battle there was. As you can probably tell, I'm very quickly falling in love with Ole Romeny. He's been, you know, first goal, you know, I think he really, really enjoyed that. You know, and it's like I say, there's just a dynamism about him that none of the other attackers are showing at the minute, and you know, it's come at the perfect time.
Yeah. While we're on the attackers, we'll switch it to the negative here. Connor, thanks for that, Sam. And there were a couple of fans talking about greediness of some of our forward play. This is, of course, James. Oxford are awful. Romany aside, Gudrum and Placheta need to stop acting like Maradona and pass the ball earlier. And then also bits about PK's distribution not being great and Harris being non-existent. There's a couple that agreed with this, Connor, and said, yeah, they need to look up more. There's better balls on than taking on shots and running at defenders. How do you respond to this? Is he wrong?
So I think Gudrum, since he's come back, he's had a suspension, and throughout the start of this year, he's been off the boil. He hasn't been what he was before that suspension. Placheta, I think that every Oxford fan will agree that there were times before this match that he would start pinging from about 35 yards out, and there would be the collective groan rather than playing the ball. But this time, maybe Rowett at halftime shoved a rocket somewhere and said, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And to be fair to Shemi this time, he did provide that ball for Romany to slot it into the back of the net. Now, with the Mark Harris situation, I actually thought that he had quite a good game. I mean, Romany had one opportunity, which was a cracking save from the goalkeeper, where he went 1-on-1. But Harris's movement, how he dropped off and then allowed Romany the space when the Coventry centre-half came forward. If there wasn't Harris doing that, then Romany wouldn't have had that chance to go through 1-on-1. And as I said, it was a difficult opportunity to make. So I don't think that that's more of a... Harris hasn't scored for about 100 years, so let's keep on slapping him with a big stick. And don't get me wrong, as you'll know, I'm not the biggest Harris fan, but I thought he had a pretty decent game at the weekend. He had his job, he had his role, and the two working together as a pair, and they can interchange between one another. I'm not sure what Sam thinks, but Romany almost didn't seem so much like a 10. He seemed a bit like a shadow striker, that the two were a bit interchangeable between one another, and it worked very well in that second half.
Okay. Sam, where do you stand on this greedy accusation?
So I think with Shemi, it's an interesting point, because the idea of Shemi playing out on that right-hand side to cut on his left, that's the whole idea, is to get shots away and create danger. We know he's not the best with his right foot. He's gotten better, but he's still, not as good as he is on his left. Gudrum, he's gone off the boil a bit. I do wonder if that sending off Exeter has kind of shaken him a bit, in the sense that, before that he was a regular in the side, he was growing in confidence, he was getting better game by game. And then, as we spoke about in the video after that game, Mark kind of lashes out in something he's going to have to get used to, and he's not quite come back. But it's not just them, Cameron Branning, there's a lot of instances where he's going to get on the edge of the area and going for goal. He's done that quite a lot in his time with us, where there's nothing going on ahead of him, so he just goes for goal. But I think overall it's not an unfixable situation. There just needs to be a little bit more discipline from the attacking players in that area. And on Romany and Harris, like Connor said, they were playing as kind of a 9 and shadow striker kind of roles. They were linking up really, really well. It's one of the things that I kind of hoped that Gudrum or Rodriguez would play when they're in that 10 role.
Okay. I've got a couple of tweets here which I daren't show you because it might just send you ballistic. So bear in mind that before you answer. First one is about Cummings. Andrew Murphy says Cummings couldn't catch a cold, can't pass the ball out, defensive decisions awful, League One. Here we come. I did check that wasn't a Swindon fan. It is from an Oxford fan. I can't. We can't slate Cummings on here. I won't have it. But there was a couple. I did see a couple of others saying goalkeeper didn't have a good game. Connor, respond.
They seem to have seemingly left out the fact that he kept us in the game with a penalty save, and that he's been our player of the season. I won't have slander that second goal was Cummings' fault. If that was his fault, Brannigan's as much to blame, and the Ellis Sims has an unreal spring on him to reach that ball. If there's been a mistake this season, I can't think of any other that Jamie Cumming has made this season. He's kept us in games, and he's kept at times a score down this season. So I'm not going to have any Jamie Cumming slander.
Good. We won't have it either. But we do a fair representation of what people are talking about. This one, Sam did get a few more draws from it, but he said Rowett absolutely killed that game with the substitutions, and our Coventry fans are talking about Bidwell was actually having a nightmare against was it against Romany, wasn't it? I think and then he got substitutions. Absolutely sick to death of seeing that half-hearted Phillips play. Took off all our goal threat. We can't get through an episode without talking about Matt Phillips. We nearly did it. Sam, is this one right?
I was going to say we're having that conversation again, and like you say, we can't get through an episode without talking about him. It's there is a growing frustration over Gary Rowett's continuing use of Matt Phillips. There was obviously relief at the fact that he wasn't starting, but as soon as you saw him on the bench, there was, okay, if this game isn't going well for us, it's going to be Matt Phillips up top. So it wasn't Matt Phillips' worst performance in Oxford shirt, but there's a fair few to choose from when it comes to that regard. There was, however, the thing about Matt Phillips, and we talked about kind of when he signed, is he's an experienced head, all this Premier League, games under his belt, Championship game under his belt. He's going to have the footballing brain to not let opposition players get away with the silly stuff. And he was causing the silly fouls to be given away that, to be frank, I'd expect a younger player who's not as seasoned in this division to be doing. You could chalk that up to partly, smart game management by Coventry, but at the same time, like I say, 34-year-old Matt Phillips, he should know, don't give an opponent the opportunity to go down so easily.
Okay, we aren't going to talk about him next week unless he scores. If he scores against Norwich on Friday night, we will talk about him. But he's banned words there. Thank you very much. Very comprehensive review. If you've only just come across the channel, we know there's other Oxford channels. You can follow some great ones out there, but we'd really love you to press the subscribe button. And we've been so close to 100 for weeks now. We will get there. Can you help us? Press that button. Right, Con, it is Norwich City then on Friday night. Terrible travel to Norwich and to Oxford on a Friday for fans. Have a heart, Sky. Come on. Yes, and they've probably selected this one because, of course, this was on TV in the reverse fixture on your opening day weekend. You embarrassed Norwich in front of the whole nation. So they're out for a little bit of revenge when we spoke to them last night. Do you see this going any other way than a Norwich win, though, Connor?
No, if I'm absolutely honest, because I am absolutely petrified about that. That Ginger Don up front, Josh Sargent, because he is on absolute fire at the moment, and he will more likely be a Premier League striker in the next 18 months. He is that good, and against Moore and Hellick, or just any of our backline recently, the way we've been leaking in goals, it's it's going to be scary. But we had that. The only thing that we can take away is that we had that trepidation at the start of the season. So if that's any positive that we can take away from it, then that's what we're going to have to use.
And where are you both at now? I mean, Sam, you can take this one. Obviously, when you come out of the ground on Saturday, you then listen to the radio and you hear Luton go 1-0 up against Portsmouth. Are you at that point now where you're begging Portsmouth to equalise yet and stop Luton winning, or not? You're not there yet.
It's an interesting one because it's getting so tight down there. We've gone from 10 points separating us and the very top of the relegation zone to now just 8 points separating us in the very bottom of the division. I think it is at the moment a case of a kind of willing that Portsmouth equaliser to go in just to give us a bit of leeway. But at the end of the day, we can't rely on other teams to get the points and do our job for us. We need to be performing on the pitch. Like you said, Connor, Josh Ladd is in great form, but he was kept mostly quiet by Sam Long on the opening day. I'm not expecting Long to start, but that's a slight crumb of comfort. I mean, the other is that they've won one of their last 5 games, drawn 3 of them, and in 2 of those they've had to come from behind. So it's they're not impenetrable at the back.
Yeah, they definitely are not. They've lost more points from taking the lead this season than any other team. Right, both of you, fantastic. February Player of the Month time, though, so in the comments, let us know who it's going to be. Quick one here, Connor. A name?
I'm going to go with Kyoso. I think that he's been... I think he's put in very good Sturgey performances at right back position. He's made that position his own. I think he's been invaluable. I think this season I'll be honest, he's done a lot better than I thought he would be. It's been a bit of hard pickings, to be honest, picking out a Player of the Month, I think. But I think he's been the most consistent this season in the month of February.
Sam?
I'm going to go, like Connor said, it's been a horrible month to choose a Player of the Month, but Will Volks, maybe. Will has been kind of a very steady presence in that midfield. I'll put it this way, it's night and day from the start of the campaign, and it's good to see that he's putting in the kind of work that we expected when we signed him.
Okay. Lovely, jubbly. Last one to finish then. It's now fast forwarding to May. You've just beaten Swansea away in the last day of the season to stay up. Everything's happy, and you're now looking forward, your feet up to watch the playoff championship final on May the 24th, given that's the date that's just been announced. So then, as Oxford fans, who would you love to see in a dream championship final with your feet up, with your glass of beer in your hand, in an Oxford beer garden come May 24th? Sam?
First of all, I've got to apologise to Sunderland fans. I picked you lot to go up automatics. You're kind of falling off a little bit. Sorry about that, lads. But I think probably Sunderland. And after obviously that really shaky period of time they had towards the beginning of the month, Middlesbrough have bounced back. Obviously, Coventry looked quite good, but I'd love a Sunderland Middlesbrough final with Sunderland going up to the Premier League.
Okay, Connor?
I'd like a Sheffield United Coventry City, and ideally Coventry City win just to get them out of my sight. But on a serious note, I think Coventry City, they've come knocking on the door so many times before in recent seasons. They know what it's like to go to Wembley, as they've been there for the past few times, and I think that Frank Lampard is starting to prove himself as a very good manager at this level, and I don't really want to see Burnley in the playoffs at all, just because of how boring it would be to watch Burnley in a playoff final.
All right, let us know if you disagree in the comments. Right, thank you very much. You two will be watching you live on Sky this Friday night. Make it a good one, please. We don't need 0-0 draws on a Friday night with our beer in our hand. Please make it as good as it was the first time round, and we'll see you in 7 days' time to review it all. Thanks so much for watching.